Welcome to the CEO Pulse podcast. So today we have Mr. Scott Bower on the show. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you being here.
I appreciate the invite, man. Absolutely. Thank you.
No, I love it. I love everything that you're doing. You have a very successful podcast right now as well. Hashtag InvestThis. I've been a guest on it, and I loved it. I love the format, the questions, and everything that it conveys as far as empowering investment. You know, people are getting into it. So
Thank
that's
you.
awesome.
Appreciate that.
You're also the founder of HBSB Holdings, which is a real estate investment company as well here in Maricopa County.
Yep.
Based out of here. Are you guys doing just stuff here in the valley, or are you branching to other areas?
You know, this is a big valley, right? So we do everything just here. I'm from Iowa for a little while. I actually got my dad into the business. We started an operation back in Iowa, and he thought about doing some more stuff in Iowa. Obviously, I'm from there. I know the land. I know some people, but I realized that, you know, to be really targeted and focused here in Phoenix will get me pretty far.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at. We're here in Phoenix.
Yeah, it's a highly competitive market, and you're doing great on it. So I know you're doing you're pushing your podcast over to 2020 as well, and you, so I mean that's big plans in the works right there as well. So I want to dive into two things, like right out of the gate.
Okay.
Just kind of dive deep real quick. One is in 7 words or less, what do you do? And then the second one is, what is your superpower as an entrepreneur? And we're talking in the context of entrepreneurship as a whole, not necessarily just real estate, but everything. You know, speaking from the professional aspect to the mindset aspect,
Sure.
and everything that it conveys.
So first question, what do I do in 7 words or less? I solve problems. You know, I think from an entrepreneur standpoint, that is being an entrepreneur, solving other people's problems. You're paid, no matter what business that you're in, you're paid in proportionate to the problems that you solve for people. And so that's what I do. You know, we solve people's problems. In the real estate space specifically, that's been my niche. It's not just, you know, we're not buying and selling. I'm not a realtor, I'm not an agent, but we're offering cash for houses, subject to deals, wrap deals. We're creating notes out of thin air. And so we're solving people's problems that way, and it's been very cool.
Creativity goes a long way too when you're structuring something like this. For example, in real estate, there's so many different ways where, you know, to go through a transaction, right?
Yep.
I think one of the what I've noticed on your end is that you get creative about not just one way of doing or solving a problem, but okay, what can be done, and then if not, I mean, you'll structure it this way, you'll structure it this way, and then obviously it's just more tools onto your belt, right?
What really happens is you have to start at square one, right? So when I first got started back in 2014, I was learning how to wholesale. Well, even prior to that, I was an agent. So I think that was a really good place to start as an agent because I got to learn how the transaction works to get it from A to Z, right? On just a standard real estate transaction. You understand about opening escrow, about you know, contract or repairs, the Binzer, all of that you go to understand. But then after about a year of being an agent, I started to learn about wholesaling houses. Now you have to, at one step at a time, learn each piece. And as time goes on, I think you get better at each piece and you're able to stack on more creative strategies. You can't do it right out of the bat. And that's where just a seasoned investor is going to have the leg up over a new investor because you have more time. You have more opportunities.
I completely agree. There's oftentimes that people want to set up a business model and then kind of start, you know, tackling 4 or 5 different niches, and if you try to become a master of everything, I mean, you'll be a master of none. It's just, you know, one of those deals. Figure one thing out, and then, as in any other business, you know, you figure one portion of it, and then you move forward on to the next one, and then you dominate that one, and then kind of, you know, scale that up as you go. So yeah, I mean it's a great approach, and I know we both come from a similar background in terms of how we build businesses. You know, pretty much the bootstrap model. I mean, you're a closer. I love going to appointments and closing, and so we connect on a couple of different levels. So when do you feel that you became an entrepreneur, that it actually hit you, and you said, I'm gonna, you know, go forth and do my own thing, and
This is what I'm going to do?
Yeah.
So I actually started when I was a junior in high school. I had, kind of going back before that, when I was 16 years old, sophomore in high school, I was in a coma for 10 days, spent 32 days in the hospital, had a traumatic brain injury. And after I recovered from that, thankfully I was able to recover over a summertime between my sophomore and junior year of high school. I worked a job as a car detailer for a company before I had the accident. Well, after I had the accident happen, I went back to work for that company, and I realized that their way of doing it wasn't efficient. And I figured out a better way to do it, and they didn't like that. And so I said, okay, maybe I can just go do this on my own. And I decided at that point that I was going to open a little small car detailing company. And that was my first bite off of what entrepreneurship felt like. Mm-hmm. I mean, we were making thousands of dollars as a high school kid, right? Which is crazy. And it was on my terms. It was on my hours. Sure, I worked a lot during the time that I made that happen, but I mean, it was very cool. And at that point, I knew that I was an entrepreneur. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur for whatever reason. Something inside of me has always had my calling that I want to not only create value for people, but also it can create other opportunities in the form of jobs.
Would you call it like a craving for liberty, a craving for freedom, to a level, or is it something else that drives it?
I think, well, at first it was control. I wanted control because I thought that I could figure out a better way, more efficient way to do business. And so if I had the control over that, didn't have to listen to what somebody else said, that's what I craved. Mm-hmm. And that's been a good thing, and that's been a bad thing as an owner, right? From a scaling standpoint, when you want too much control, then, it kind of can prevent you from growing. And in a way, that's kind of been one of the issues I've had to struggle with. However, we're breaking past that right now.
You mean letting go of a degree of control?
Yep.
Did you fall into I fell into the micromanagement trap for the longest time. What happened? I got burned out in 6 months.
Yeah.
I couldn't operate everything. You can't wear every single fucking hat in the business.
Right.
You can't. Just not doable. At the beginning,
not long term.
Yeah, not long term. You
right.
will burn out. So at the beginning, maybe you have to. You do what you need to do to go past the startup stage and the bootstrap. In a bootstrap style business, but you can't. It's not sustainable. And
it's not.
I've seen mom and pop shops that go years and years and years and years and never take the second step of figuring stuff out to lose a little bit of that micromanagement. Because at the end of the day, it kills.
It does kill. And you know what? It takes people out of their comfort zone, right? If you go to start a business and you're going out of your comfort zone just to start the business, and then once it gets up and running, you get some traction, you're doing all the work, but you feel comfortable in the fact that, hey, I have control of this. Mm-hmm. I can make things happen myself. When you go to start hiring more people and start to grow and scale your business, now all of a sudden you lose part of that control, right? Mm-hmm. And when you do that, it takes you out of your comfort zone. Again, a lot of people shy away from that. People can go years and years and years without stepping outside of their comfort zone box, right? And they can still have a successful business, and for some, that's okay. Not everybody has to blow up and just blow up their business. Some people feel very comfortable and are okay with, being a solopreneur and, taking all the responsibility for themselves. And that's okay. Because I think that not everybody's created equal. That's for sure. And what kind of lifestyle do you want? What kind of life do you want to live? How much time do you want to spend with your family? Because for me, I'd mentioned that I got into that accident when I was 16 years old. Well, I had a brain injury. They didn't know if I was going to wake up from the coma. They didn't know if I was going to be okay, or if when I did wake up, I was going to have issues moving forward with either learning or speech or whatever it might be. Great, I'm so grateful today I don't. But what that taught me at that point is that life is very short, and just like that, it can be taken away from you. And so for me, why I do what I do now and why I continue to step outside of my comfort zone to build my team and to build a business that operates without me being in it 100% of the time is because I want to build a family that I get to spend time with. Mm. I want to have control. Once again, back to the control. I want to have control over the time that I have on this earth, because every single day, every single minute, from the time that I got here this morning, my life was shorter, right? And the same with yours. Every single minute, we're always ticking. And so time, one of my mentors, friends, Kent Clothier, is huge on time, right? The time is now, and he's very true. Mm-hmm. He's very right, because before we know it, 10 years goes by, 20 years goes by, your whole life goes by, and you just you don't know what happened.
Yeah, you look up and the time's gone, opportunities are gone. You're a whole different person. The drive and motivation that you had at one point, I think those are gifts that come, but they're seasonal. Mm-hmm. So if you feel driven and motivated, and that's not gonna last, 2-3 years. It's not gonna be sitting there if you don't do something about it, right? And lack of action, I think, kills a lot of that initial fuel that maybe we have, or and it's completely natural to get to start getting kicked around by doubts, by fear. Should I do this? Should I not? Am I built for this? I mean, is this making sense? Is this even where I want to go? Like you said, there's people who are perfectly happy on a 9 to 5, and there's people who are very, perfectly happy just being solopreneurs. And the point is, I mean, once we find our groove, a place where a space where we can operate and be, fulfilled, be happy, and have a certain degree of meaning, I think that makes, a formula for success, right? It's subjective to everybody.
So going back on that, it all starts with your why. Why are you doing what you're going to do, right? Because I think what we've all found out in this real estate business is the money is great, but the money doesn't solve the problem. The money doesn't make you happy.
Yeah.
Money just opens up doors for you, maybe.
Right.
But what is your why? And you talk about motivation. Motivation's cheap. You're motivated when you're in a good mood, when things are going well. You're motivated when you think you have all the ducks in the row and life is good. You're motivated, but the second that something goes bad, now all of a sudden that motivation goes away. The only way that you're going to continue to go down the entrepreneurial path and continue to grow is if there's a strong why behind what you're doing, because that's going to get you out of bed on those days when you don't want to get up, or when things aren't going well, or when you have a couple bad deals that go bad and you're not making any money, or you spend a whole lot on marketing and it doesn't come back the way that it should. You have to have a why behind why you're doing what you're doing in order to keep you moving forward, or else it's just that easy to give up.
Absolutely, I completely agree. I mean, there's something that's gonna either wake you up in the morning or wanna make you drag, the morning, as long as possible so you don't get to work. It's one of you either have it on a positive side or on a negative side, right? But I think that's always going to be there. Now, going back to the why, because you made a very, very important point. How did you figure out your why? How did it come to you? I mean, it's not one of those things that you wake up one morning and you're like, oh shit, I want to do this. Yes, I'm there.
So kind of like what I was talking about, when you start an entrepreneurial path, you have to take one piece at a time to learn. Let's talk about real estate specific, right? So you have to start with one thing and then you slowly bolt on different approaches and different strategies over time. And I think your why is kind of the same way. I remember when I first, somebody brought up, what is your why? And you're like, I don't know. I have no idea what my why is, right? What is why are you asking? I don't know. I don't know what the why is. And I think that from that period, and I can remember it was actually at a Keller Williams event, Keller Williams Realty event. They had a course called Bold. And Bold asked that question, and from that time on, almost every day I think about what my why is, and I think it evolves over time. What I've come to find out about my why is that I want to control the time that I have as best as I can. I want to be able to make the decisions and the choices as to how I lead my life based on what I want to do and what can serve my family, what can serve my health, what can serve, I want to make those decisions. I don't want to be controlled by somebody else, and so that's my why. That's what keeps getting me up and going every single day, no matter what.
Absolutely, I love it, man. It's one of my mentors taught me this. It's whenever you're building up and this picture of what the why is, because it's a compilation of different things, right? It's not going to be just one car. It's not going to be one house. It's a compilation of a life. It's a compilation of the overall picture. But one thing that I mean, you ask yourself, why every morning. One of the questions that I go back to almost every single time that I'm about to make a decision is, does this work or does this not work? And it's kind of like a very black and white, basic little concept. But I have that image at the end of the road, right? That's where I want to be, and reverse engineer from that. And then every time I'm about to make a decision, if it's a new deal, if it's a new venture, if it's moving to another place or whatever, and I think about the question, does it work or does it not work for that why? And it's kind of like a good, steering wheel.
When you say does it work or does it not work, I mean, what? Because I agree with that. It's a pretty simple question, very black and white. Is it going to work or is it not going to work? But what does that mean for you?
It means that is it going to get me a step closer to where I want to get to?
Yeah.
Or is it going to, kick me a step back?
Right.
And it can be in the simplest things, man. For example, if I'm working on a new project or doing something that's taking up extracurricular time, does it work or does it not work for me to wake up, 5 a.m. in the morning to put 3 hours into it?
Yep.
Yeah, it does. So, move on, to simple things like that, and I know that's gonna, put me 2 steps forward.
Yeah.
And if we come to the point where we're completely, up and honest with ourselves, I mean, we can try to lie to people, but you're not gonna be able to lie to yourself. You
Right.
know whether or not it works or it doesn't work.
The truth always comes out.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, in my opinion, if I cut the bullshit with my own self, I can, make decent rational decisions based on that why, based on that compilation of the vision that I worked on. And it's I think finding your why, it's something that takes work. It takes trial and error, and I think that evolves like we all evolve, through time.
Exactly, it does. Being an entrepreneur, I think, can be, what's the word I'm going for? I mean, being an entrepreneur, entrepreneurship in general is a constant choice every single day, right? You always have to continually, why are you doing this as an entrepreneur? Why are you going through these struggles? Why are you going through these times when you're so uncertain about what, whether you're going to be able to bring in money for your family or whether you're going to be able to, whatever. Why are you doing this? And being an entrepreneur is a constant daily battle with that, right? And so coming back to your why, like that why just always strengthens why you get up every day. I mean, I love getting up every day. That's my favorite part of the day is in the morning because I know that this is another opportunity, 1, to be on this earth, and 2, I have another opportunity to see what's going to happen that day, whether it's good or bad. One of the things that has really impacted my life is meditation. It's something that I've come to do every single day. And why, you might ask, well, why? What does meditation do? Some people don't understand what meditation is. And the easiest way that I can explain it is that you learn to come and understand how your own brain works. You learn to watch the activity that goes on, the thoughts, the chatter that goes on in your brain every single day. And we all have it, right?
Yeah.
And when you understand and are able to sit back and watch what happens there, all the external stuff in life doesn't affect your mood anymore. So whether you're having a bad day or, your business isn't going as well or maybe a deal falls through or whatever happens that's negative, your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever breaks up with you, none of that stuff matters, right? Because you have a stronghold on your thoughts and on your own brain and you come to understand it, which is really, really good.
It's I call that concept finding your truth. And it was it was taught to me by one of my mentors. It's based off meditation, looking inside, looking inwards for internal drivers as opposed to external drivers.
Yeah.
And finding what space you're operating from and staying true to that. I mean, it's one of the toughest things to do. I mean, at least personally, I can tell you about my experience in those terms. And sometimes I'm like, man, I feel like this is my truth, this is my why, but fuck, man, I just want to sleep. I don't feel like doing anything today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's having the I don't even know if you call it discipline, but just having that will to want to do something and then show up and drop another rep into it.
Yeah, just show. I mean, that's a good point. Showing up every day, right? Yeah. Just be there to show up. So.
After you decided to jump into, obviously you made a leap into entrepreneurship. How do you think that your life would have been different had you not, made that conscious choice?
It's very hard for me to really look at that because I did make the conscious choice. When I look at, let's say I would have gone, actually, when I moved to Arizona, I worked for a company, the car detailing company I was telling you about, that introduced me to a guy that was the president of a large logistics company based out of Iowa, where I'm from. Mm-hmm. When I went to college, he said, why don't you come intern with me, during the summertime in college, and I'll teach you all the different pieces about the company. And when you graduate, you can go anywhere in the country you want to go. We'll make a job for you. Phenomenal time. It was 2011 when this happened. There weren't a lot of jobs out there, so I was very blessed to have that opportunity to come out here to Phoenix. And I worked with that company for about a year as a W-2 employee. I was in sales, so it was W-2 plus commission, but I only lasted a year because it just wasn't for me. Mm-hmm. I was under everybody else's guidelines. I was under company policy. It was a corporate structure. The company that I worked for was Jacobson Companies at the time, and I was good friends, and really he was my first mentor with the president of this company. And so anytime I had a problem, I just called him,
you went right to the source. Yeah.
Not a good idea in corporate America, especially the company that's 7,500 people large, right? Yeah. That didn't work. And so I realized that wasn't for me. If I was still in that position where I was a W-2 employee, I think that I would feel much more limited. I don't think I would have as large, my mindset has grown exponentially because I know that there is no limit. The only limit that you put on yourself is the ones that you put on yourself.
Right.
That's the only limit out there in this world. There's a limited abundance of everything out there. And I mean everything, right? Whether that's money, whether that's other resources, especially here in the U.S., we have such an abundance of everything that this is where you can be successful. This is where you can literally create whatever you want to create, right?
I agree. If you can't find it here, man, it's because you're not looking hard enough.
Right. You're not looking and you're not trying.
Yeah. I mean, we can complain about politics, complain about, the economy or whatever. But at the end of the day, man, I mean, we have a Walmart in every other corner, gas stations, and just, 2, per block. And we live in a society that really upholds, values, entrepreneurship. And I mean, it doesn't happen in a lot of places in the world. I mean, most countries, it's a pain in the ass to do any type of business by yourself.
Right.
So not tapping into the opportunity that we're given here, to me, it's
I mean,
crazy.
If I could talk on that for a second, when I started my business,
Mm-hmm.
I figured out that there was a way that you could use credit cards and get 0% interest money for up to almost 2 years. So what I did was I maxed out 10 credit cards. The credit card companies have a couple day delay in when they report you submitting an application for a credit card. And so I knew I knew that I had good credit.
Get away with it for a couple of days. Yeah.
Right. Well, they would all get approved. So I applied for 10, got approved for 10, and as soon as they were approved, we called and got a credit line increase. Mm-hmm. They'll normally increase it 10 to 20% of the allowable limit if you have good credit. Mm-hmm. And so got the credit line increase when they sent the checks in the mail. Or then when they sent the card in the mail, rather, they sent convenience checks that come with it. Mm-hmm. And so you could use those checks just as like credit card, like you're swiping the credit card. So I write myself a check for 90% of the allowable limit on that credit card because I knew that I could use that for up to, it was 12, 18, or 21 months for free.
Right.
At 0% interest. And so I did that with 10 credit cards, put 90 grand in my checking account, and that was my seed money. That was how I got started.
Nailed it.
Nailed it, right? A lot of risk if you don't know how to make money back. But I was betting on myself. And I think as an entrepreneur, you have to do that. You have to bet on yourself. You have to, if anybody can do it, it's you. And if you don't believe that, then you probably shouldn't be an entrepreneur.
Absolutely agree. I was having a conversation with somebody close to me a few days ago, and the topic of risk and challenges and came up, right? So we were talking about a couple of different scenarios, and we would kind of break it down, and after every comment, the but came out of that person, and but if this, and it fucking snapped at the end of it. Like, you know what? You cannot be an entrepreneur and also find a problem for every solution that's thrown at you. It's you have to have degree of risk tolerance, and I think it's one of the hardest things to do, honestly. Whenever you have that false sense of security from a 9 to 5 or that steady paycheck, if you look behind that, I mean, that company, it's still running on on eggshells.
Oh, I would say that your risk is
yeah,
exponentially higher working for a W-2 company, because at any given time when somebody else decides that no longer you have a position, that's another person deciding that you don't have a position as a W-2 employee, right? Yeah. Like crazy.
The first time that hit me was when I had my first business. So the first time one of my employees came over and said, I wanna get a house. And at that point I was building the company and I was doing a couple other stuff. So I was having trouble getting a house as the company owner. And all they asked for was just a couple checks from 2 weeks prior, and the guy went off and he was able to qualify for a house, same credit, same everything. He was able to qualify for a house like 10 times easier than I was. I was like, what if I stop employment tomorrow? Like, it's an illusion, man. It's crazy. Yeah. But yeah. Anyways, it's I think it comes back to having the ability to bet on yourself, which I think you've done so well.
Yeah, I mean, betting on yourself, self-improvement, all the time. I think, as I'm sitting here and we're talking, I'm thinking about entrepreneurship and what that means to me, and all the time that I spend trying to learn about myself and self-improvement, the books that I've read, the time that I've meditated. I mean, I'm understanding more about myself. Because if you don't know and understand and help yourself first, you'll never be able to help anybody else. And I think that's very, very true, right?
I agree.
Personal development is ongoing. It doesn't ever end because you can always get a little bit better. You can always get a little bit smarter. You can always move the needle just a little bit more, right?
Right.
No matter how far you go. The bar just keeps getting higher as time goes on.
Yeah.
So
you have personal improvement, and then you have perspectives as well. So even if you think, and I'll speak for myself when I say you, right? But even when I think that I already know the content of something, it's always good to listen to, from a different perspective, from a different person, and see what that is. You're always gonna walk away with something, a new golden nugget, a new token or something. If you pay attention, if you pay enough attention, and then make the conscious effort to really work on yourself to catch all that stuff.
Well, it's the same thing as if you watch a movie, right? You watch a movie one time and then you go and watch it again. You see something in the movie you didn't see the first time. And that's the same, so going to events, going around people, even in this business, I feel like I got pretty good at it. But I'm not the best, and I could always learn from the other people that are doing really well, right? I mean, so I think there's always room for growth no matter what you're doing. And I don't know if that's where you're going. The path.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it fits right in. How important is mindset? And I know we're kind of touching a little bit on it, but I know you go deeper on the mindset stuff. So
it all starts with your mindset. I mean, it all starts with your mindset. Literally everything that can evolve out of your life starts between your own two ears. Whether you want to whether you want to believe it to be true or you don't want it to believe it to be true, either way you're right, right? And so you have to start with the mindset, to begin with. The problem with the world today, I think, and general education is that they teach you about all these limitations you have. They when you're going through grade school, high school, they teach you about all the stuff you can do and all the stuff you can't do, and they put these artificial barriers around what your opportunities look like in your life.
Right.
And until you change your mindset, that will never change. Until you make the agreement with yourself that they lied to me, this isn't true, I have unlimited opportunities and I can do whatever I want to. Until you change your mindset that way, then it'll never change. And once again, going back to your why, you have to wake up with your why on what to push you every single day. Well, you also got to wake up with the mindset of you have endless opportunities. You got to wake up with the right mindset that hey, even though yesterday my business, this happened, deal went bad, lost money, didn't close the deal, whatever. Now is a new day. Reset. I have a new day, a new opportunity. And that's, I think, what really gets me excited every day when I wake up.
It's something very, very important. You're talking about classical conditioning, coming back down to the way that we're raised, right?
Yep.
My background, it's not really an entrepreneurship background. It's not a place where you see a lot of growth and people thriving, and it's just it's a pretty consistent small town kind of setup, and it's totally different than what you see whenever you move to a bigger city. Whenever you start exposing yourself to different type of people who are just more open-minded, and then even more high risk takers. But it can be a challenge to shift from that mindset that you borrowed when you were going through all that classical conditioning to, all right, cool, that's the story that I was told, and this is me, this is what I choose to do. It's one of the been one of the hardest things for me to do, I can tell you that much.
So kind of, because I'm from Iowa, right? Iowa's a small town place, and I remember this will always be, and I'm going to prove this right one day. One of my friends that I grew up with and lived with in college, and a good friend of mine, he used to always, I don't know how we got on the number, but I said, I'm going to make 10 grand a day. Well, in small town Iowa, that is unreal. Yeah, right, you are crazy. $3.65 million a year, you're no way that's ever going to happen, right? Now I see it's possible. Now that I'm here in Phoenix and the business that we have, I know that is a very attainable goal if you just map it out, right? You figure out the KPIs that are going to get you to those numbers, and you put it in motion. As long as you follow the plan, you'll get there, right? Yeah. So I'm not there yet, but the time when we make $3.6 million a year, you better believe I'm going to be sending my P&L to that guy and say, listen, dude, this is real. I told you that I was going to do this, and here we are. And I think that's going back to the mindset. You have to believe that you can do it, no matter what it is that you're doing, right? doesn't have to just be business. It can also be with your family. You have to believe, like, let's say you're going to get married to somebody. You got to believe that relationship's going to work from the very beginning, or else if you already go into it to begin with, knowing or thinking that it's going to fail, you're going to fail because you already pre-programmed to your mind that's what you were, that you were going with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so going back to the. I mean, you mentioned KPIs, you mentioned systems.
Yeah.
So you still have this, and we've had this conversation before, but you have this. You can't really lose control of a company, right? So moving, kind of, making a shift into business. How do you still keep a hold of your company and having that degree of control without letting it saturate you, and still having time to do personal growth, still having time to for yourself and your family.
So I think it's really simple because I look at my P&L every single month and I look at the KPIs every single week. So we have a monthly or a weekly meeting, and on that weekly meeting, Monday morning meeting, we're talking about what the KPIs look for the last week, what to project out for this week, and it's a quick 30-minute overview of what's going on. That keeps my finger on the pulse, right? I don't let it go too long, and that's evolving too because, as I build the team out more, it's like, okay, when do we do this? When do we have time to do this? Is Monday the best day? Is Friday the best day? Is the middle of the week the best day? Is it 8 a.m.? Is it 11 a.m.? Is it, you're figuring it out, but as long as that you just keep your eye and you're conscious of what you're doing and making sure that you have a plan.
A degree of accountability as well. So
absolutely. I mean, that keeps the accountability on point as well.
In terms of KPIs, I have something I'm going to email you. I think you might find it useful. So that's awesome. I want to pick your brain on because I know you're doing. I mean, right now you're making moves, right? So you're still logging deals and working on transactions on a daily. So you're in it. Expansion wise, I know that's one of the things that you're looking at. I mean, you guys just got an office space, right?
Yeah, well, it was earlier this year.
Right. So you moved into a bigger space. That's what I meant.
Right.
So that calls in for new expenses, new people, new hiring, new processes, new building. I mean, how do you start stacking? What's your process for figuring out? Okay, it's a good time to expand.
I don't think that there's ever a time when it's like, okay, this is the perfect time, right? This is the right time, but you just got to take action. So that's the most important time because that action will show you whether it was the right time or not, and it'll show you if you made a mistake or not, right? So let's say, for an example, that you want to go hire a sales team. You want to go hire 10 people, right? You go out and you hire 10 people and everything goes haywire, right? Like you end up not doing any deals because you're trying to chase all these 10 people, or your revenue stops because now you have all these other people you got to deal with, whatever. Well, that showed you that wasn't the right move. Maybe you only need to hire one or two, right? And so then you cut it down, and then you say, okay, I got these one or two people. They're up and running. They're generating revenue. They're an asset to the company. Now I can go hire a couple more, right? And just keep revolving the door. Keep taking action to do different things that you want to make happen.
So in terms of controlled growth, so you start stacking little by little, and then
the snowball effect, right? And over time, I mean, dude, there's no perfect storm. There's no perfect way to do it. And no matter what book you read or what coach you bring in or whatever, your business is not going to be the same as everybody else.
Perspectives, man. Everybody has their own take on the same stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I mean, it's just not going to be perfect. I always kind of thought that I was somebody that was kind of like a perfectionist. Like if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it to the best that I possibly can. But in business and in any sort of entrepreneurship role, you can't do that.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't. And you got to be okay with that. And things aren't going to go perfect all the time. And when things go bad, you can't let it affect you. You just got to say, okay, I see that. I learned from it. I'm not going to make that mistake again. And let's keep moving forward.
So one of the things that I've done in the past to kind of mitigate that a little bit, because I do tend to get obsessed about something and then just want to polish it and polish it and polish it. Like, it's not right, It's not ready. It's like, it's got this one little glitch here or whatever. And I've done that in different areas, right? But one thing that I learned to do, or one of my mentors taught me, was to build something up to 80%, where I feel like, all right, cool, this is 80% done. Then launch, and then whatever comes back, you're going to refine, you're going to tweak. And by the time you do a second launch, you're going to be like maybe at 96% where it's, effective. If you want to put a percentage on it, right? But it's kind of like a two-stage deal, and I think it helps with a lot of a lot of that perfection paralysis that we can get if you're that type of person, right?
A perfectionist.
Yeah, perfectionist. Yeah.
So, I mean, this takes us, we go down a whole nother rabbit
Dude,
hole.
that's
The 80-20 rule is so applicable in every aspect of life that you look at, because you can argue that even if you bring something to 80% and then you launch it, right? You're going to have another 80-20 principle because you have another 80% of improvement that you can do, but there's still going to be 20% left, right? And so that 80-20 rule is so applicable across all aspects of life. Yeah. I mean, I see that being more prevalent more and more every day.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's crazy, but it's a statistic that makes, if you apply it anywhere, you'll see it.
And even if you're trying to build a course, or if you're anything that you're doing, the 80-20 rule is or principle is in effect.
Right. So recap your definition on the 80-20 rule, just for those who haven't heard about it.
So 80% of your activity, 80% of the activity is going to generate
20% of your 20% of your activity is going to
generate 80% of the profit or of the results, the result, right? Yeah, I had to think about that for a second, but yeah. So you try to focus all of your efforts on that 20%. So if going on appointments in the real estate space, if going on appointments is what gets me the money, then I don't want to be sitting on the phone. I want to be on appointments. Right?
Yeah, focus on that little section.
Right. And and you can do that in any business, whatever, or anything that you're doing in life, right? If you're working out, if you're wanting to get stronger, you're not going to get a lot stronger going just running, right? You're going to get a lot stronger if you're lifting the weights, or if you're going to do stuff that way, right?
Yeah. So yeah, man. I mean, there's a ton of principles out there, and I mean, you've dropped a lot of nuggets right now, especially in the mindset space. I think it can be one of the most important areas that can be overlooked, because as entrepreneurs, we're used to running, and then just kind of looking at the next shiny object and then shooting for that. But really taking the time to slow down and wind it back a little bit and have that self-awareness of, okay, cool, this is, why am I doing all this? What space am I operating from? And really owning that, it's something that I think you do really well. So.
Well, I think it's constant, man. It's a constant change and improvement. I appreciate you saying that, but I feel like I can always improve. I can always get a little bit better. I always think that from a strategy standpoint, from a business strategy standpoint, this year we've knocked off 2 days, crossed them off the calendar, and those are reflection and projection days. So we're going to reflect on all of 2019, every single thing that happened, every marketing campaign, every deal that was done. What did that look like? What did the KPIs behind it look like?
I love that.
Now, okay, I can take those same KPIs, those same metrics, and I can plan out what 2020 is going to be like, and I can follow that roadmap. This is the first time I've ever done that. I've been saying that I was going to do it for a long time, but now that I have a team to keep me accountable, and I have it on the calendar to keep me accountable, and I have those days blocked off where no matter what, nobody can talk to me on those days because I'm busy,
it's
right?
Already there. If it's in the calendar, it's happening.
Right. But, that's something I think is going to have a drastic impact on my business going into 2020.
Awesome, man. I love it. So before we head out, if you were to, I like asking this question. If you were to walk into your 17-year-old self, and I always go back to 17 because in my head that's when I owned the world. But if you were to go back to your high point of your youth, right? What would you tell that kid right before you jumped into responsibilities and everything else? What would you tell that kid?
I mean, I think Scott. Go big fast.
Ooh.
Go big fast, because so you can always go small, right? You can always just start over again. But if you go big from the very beginning and you just go, you're out there to just crush, go to the biggest possible thing you can do, whatever that looks like, you're gonna learn a ton. If you shoot for the moon and you make it 80% of the way there, you still got pretty far, right?
Yeah.
You're pretty.
Land on top of a mountain, still top of a mountain.
And I wouldn't be afraid to fail. That's a more important thing. Don't be afraid to fail. Once again, going back to standard schooling, standard education, standard life that we all grow up in, they teach you to not fail.
Right.
You get an F on your test, or that's bad. It's a bad thing. But the reality is that failing is your best it's the best thing you can do, because you fail, as long as you fail forward, you're doing something right. You're learning throughout the process, and you're not going to make that mistake again. And that's ultimately going to get you exponentially further faster.
Go big and fail forward. I love it, man.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, Scott. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you coming in and sharing just,
Hopefully
golden
got some
nuggets with
nuggets.
us. No, absolutely, yeah. Especially, like I said, I mean, I know you do a lot of mindset work. I mean, I know you run. I mean, you hustle your business. You're working the trench. You're working the trenches. So I mean, to see it coming in from the actual field, I mean, I think it's taking a lot of value.
Yeah.
On our end. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you being here, man.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, bro. Well, there you guys have it. Scott Bower, the CEO Pulse podcast. So stay tuned, stay focused. You got this.